I have spent exactly 32.8 hours watching Jordan Peterson, 12.6 hours watching Andrew Huberman, 6.1 hours watching David Goggins content, which is just like general content about him. I have also spent about 20 plus hours watching Dr. K on HealthyGamerGG, and I also have dozens of hours of watching self-help, self-improvement videos from other YouTubers. If there is a motivational lifestyle guru out there, I have spent hours consuming their content. And I've applied these things to sometimes my benefit, sometimes my detriment. It's gotten me through law school, it's gotten me into medical school. My life has been different because of these people. But I also know what the positives are from their content, and I know what the negatives are, and essentially when it's time to stop consuming and avoid the negative consequences. See, I'm kind of like a motivational goblin. The more motivation I consume, I only become more motivated to kind of consume more content. So I'll spend, an hour watching a video, and then another video will pop up on my suggested video list, and it's, how dare you? Who do you think you are? And I watch it anyways. Unfortunately, there are just so many different kinds of self-improvement, self-help content. I guess that I'll just call it all self-improvement content, that it's really hard to make a video discussing how to know when you become too absorbed in this content. But I think there is a point when you've reached kind of a critical mass level of self-improvement. A good guru will meet you where you are and make you feel validated in some way, or at least something that resonates with you. And I decided to pick 5 of the top most influential influencers on YouTube. Even if you haven't heard of them before, I think these are 5 people that you should know about. What happens if you go full native on someone's channel for too long? Let's learn how to self-improve responsibly. Guru number 1, Dr. Jordan Peterson, the Lobster Man.
No, you let go of my lip, kill the infants. Why are you so obsessed by it?
And I love Jordan Peterson in so many ways. I have his books, I show his stuff to my parents, I quote him in videos sometimes even. But he's become, controversial. He's become something of kind of like a political icon, and that's not really why I watch his content. But I relate to him. He's a clinical psychologist. I have a bachelor's in psychology. He developed dependence on painkillers because his wife was dying, and I drink at least 7 Mountain Dew Baja Blasts a day. So we are pretty much the same person. What should you take away from someone like Jordan Peterson? You should watch Jordan Peterson's content because he actually does address serious existential issues that many young people, and especially young men, face. He helps people find meaning, purpose, develop a moral code, and strategies with dealing with challenges. See, when I went through college or in high school, I was told how to feel, but I don't know if anyone told me how to know how to feel. The perspective of Peterson leans heavily on psychology and historical narratives, and most of his advice feels pretty easy to consume. His number 1 quote is you should know to clean your room before you start taking on the challenges of the world. Because how are you gonna clean up the world if you can't clean up the pizza boxes in your room, or something like that? So if you're asking yourself questions about morality, getting started in life, or just want to learn psychological principles, watch some Peterson content. But how do you know when you should stop watching Peterson content? When you should stop learning about moral codes? See, Peterson is a thinker, and there are lots of thinkers on YouTube. I myself am probably a thinker. And by thinker, I mean he doesn't really always come to definitive conclusions. I think it's because his greatest strength is analysis, and sometimes he can become trapped in this analytical washing machine. It takes abstract language and terminology from many fields that sound grandiose, but sometimes I'm not sure they always make sense. That could be because I'm too smooth-brained for Peterson's content. That could be true. But he places a lot of weight on IQ scores and trying to boil down complex topics while trapping you in a whirlwind of never-ending thought and analysis. I think it does need to be consumable. After spending dozens of hours myself consuming his content, I knew that I had gone overboard when I started doing 2 things. First is I started watching his content faster than I was able to implement anything of value. I spent time microanalyzing parts of my life and other content that I would just forget what I had learned altogether, and I started to have this motivational dementia. I would go from one interesting piece of information to another, and this like philosophical fast food I never really digested, and I didn't even really understand what it meant to me. And this led to the second problem, which is where I started to do the very thing that I think Peterson himself warns against. I started repeating thoughts and opinions from Peterson as if they were my own. I would do things in a way, I was becoming possessed by the ideological spirits that Peterson warns about, where instead of owning libs on YouTube, I was replacing my thoughts and my opinions with Peterson's theory of society. You could just watch a Peterson video instead of ask me a question about something. I actually respect Jordan Peterson. I actually even defend to a degree who he is, but I don't want to become fixated on dominance hierarchies and only replying with convoluted quotes like, worthlessness is the default condition, or the things that pose the greatest threats to your survival are the most real things, or if you don't say what you think, then you kill your unborn self. Like, what does that even mean? See, the benefit of Peterson's work is, I think he would even agree to this, it's the application. Peterson also says compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. He also says, if you're not willing to be a fool, then you cannot become a master. See, Peterson's words should be kind of like winds to your sail. See, he's propelling you to help give you speed to your journey. They shouldn't be like fans to your pseudo-profound ego. They definitely can blow you too hard, where you find yourself off course somewhere else where you definitely don't want to be. Or they might just take over your entire trip and dictate everything, in which case you're just a passenger repeating things that sound like they mean something but might not. If this is you, you are spending too much time listening rather than doing. Start implementing something, anything that you learned from his content before watching another video. I say application is better than appreciation, and I think at this point you should limit yourself to a video a day to make sure that you are not over consuming, forgetting things that mattered, and not really reflecting on the content as it means to you. And for any YouTuber or any influencer that is like Jordan Peterson's content, you should really take this stuff and see if it resonates with you before moving on. Unless it's my videos, then appreciate me, darn it. Guru number 2, Andrew Huberman, the Stanford sex and eye man. Yes, that is how I think of him now.
I'm just pointing to my eyes. And no, we are not going to have a blinking contest because I would win and you would lose, and that wouldn't be fun for you.
He is a Stanford professor of neuroscience and ophthalmology, not to be confused with optometry. Ophthalmology is the cool, hip surgeon that drives a Ferrari and dates your mom, while optometry says thank you and goes to sleep at a reasonable time. Huberman is kind of an odd one because he's both a science man who like wears long sleeves to protect people from viewing his tattoos and getting distracted or something. But he's also like a meditation dude who has lots of tattoos, but sleeps with lots of women, kind of. I'm not really sure. He maybe got canceled. I'm not 100% sure what happened there. But I get lots of... But I get lots of value from watching Huberman's content because he gives practical advice, scientifically backed advice on how to improve your life systematically. Like, here is a buzzing noise that helps you concentrate because the frequency jiggles your prefrontal cortex in the right way or something. Can't sleep? Well, go outside and stare at the sky for 20 minutes until your eyes wake up and release some special juices that make your monkey brain say, hey, it's time to swim or swing or do something. He even suggests meditations, talks about lucid dreaming, and he's just like totally on the general motivational train, which I am totally on, choo-choo. So what is good about Andrew Huberman? Well, he's kind of a success story. He had a rough upbringing, he overcame it, and got his PhD, and now he helps you discover your passions and shape your destiny. Not unlike Jordan Peterson, but Huberman is kind of like the cool guy who's like kind of sexy and did drugs. I mean the illegal kind, not you know what I mean. But Huberman has lived real life. He's an academic, but he's also like kind of just one of the guys. I think Andrew Huberman has a life that jives with us normies, and so he appreciates problems in a way that, unlike Peterson, you can identify with the problem and the approach of how he solves the problem. I think he can be easier to follow to a solution. Again, you can't sleep, it might be the stupid blinking lights in your room. His advice is science-based, it's from a credible background, and it's for people who genuinely want to maximize the efficiency and be a maximum performer type. I think you've seen YouTubers like this pop up consistently. I even think to a degree like fitness YouTubers can fall into this thing. If Peterson is the wins to your sales, Huberman is like the old swashbuckler who gives you insider tips on how to get things done and on the ship better. He, you know, like the eat limes so you don't get scurvy. It's limes, right? So how can that ever be bad? Well, you can overdo it with Huberman, but in a different way than Peterson. With Peterson, it's try and implement one thing at a time, but with Huberman, it's only implement one thing at a time. See, Huberman will have you changing your sleep patterns, fasting, deleting social media, and essentially being a full-time biohacker or neurohacker, if that's a term. Someone who is focused on optimizing like life through the scientific way, and it becomes almost like a full-time thought process. See, people forget that even though Andrew Huberman is doing a lot of content for a lot of people that genuinely can benefit from this information, it still is kind of a one-size-fits-all method that is just shotgunned out into the ether, and it's not intended to be consumed for your life specifically or all implemented at once. So how do you know when you've gone too far with Huberman-like content? When you started turning yourself into a mini Andrew Huberman instead of using his information to become the best version of you. I found myself waking up at times that didn't really make sense, buying supplements that with money I probably didn't have, and taking the, well, if it works for him and look how cool and handsome he is, I want to do that too. Trust me, ingest Huberman at moderate doses and focus on implementing Huberisms, probably waiting a few weeks before changing anything drastically and making sweeping changes to see how it affects you. I'm not as knowledgeable about probably anything that Andrew Huberman talks about as he is, but we normies can only take in so much in our brain before we start becoming Huberized. Guru 3, David Goggins, who's gonna carry the boats and the logs, Goggins.
A lot of people say that nothing's impossible. Shit, I even said that nothing's impossible several times in my life. I lied. Stay hard. Stay hard. Stay hard. Very hard.
Andrew Huberman and Jordan Peterson cannot help you live better. Then David Goggins is gonna make you live better. Peterson is the wind. Huberman is the cool dude that's done this before. And David is the engine that says, screw all that. We are gonna run on gasoline and blood. This dude ran so hard that he finished a marathon while pooping on himself, and somehow that's a flex. This man gave himself an acute kidney injury while we're supposed to stay hard. Bro, of course he's hard. He's more dehydrated than beef jerky. But what is good about David Goggins? Well, you know how when you go to a Mexican restaurant and you can tell it's gonna be absolutely baller if the menu does the whole picture of a stillborn burrito taken by a 2012 iPhone, yeah, that whole thing, that means the place is real and it's gonna be real food, really good and really cheap. Just one look at David Goggins and you can tell he's the proverbial burrito. He's all flavor, pure authenticity, given in the presentation you'd expect from that. I don't even think he actually has a YouTube channel. He just like clips of him pop up at places. See, David Goggins became his own hero. The man lost 100 pounds in 3 months, somehow. In order to meet their weight requirements, in order to become a Navy SEAL, he ate 800 calories a day, went on like a run bike thing for an hour, then swam for a couple more hours, and then did 3 more hours of like regular working out. And this is not his weekly number, this is what he did in a day. See, David Goggins isn't a content creator, he is the content. He's basically the internet's stepfather. He has no excuse mentality, and he wants you to callous your mind because you don't know yourself. This brings new meaning to the term stay hard, am I right? Sorry about that. His content always manages to convince me that I can run through a brick wall and there's no science, there's no supplements, there's just do it. When you think you're done, you're actually at the 40% limit. You've got 60% left in the tank. And that's where YouTubers that are like this, that are just pure raw, get it done emotion, start going into the, how do you know when you've had too much, David Goggins? An engine on a sailboat is actually not abnormal. Sometimes you have unfavorable winds or no winds, or you get stuck in a bad current, or dare I say, stuck in a rut. Getting out requires horsepower, but engines are finicky lengthy and require a lot of resources, and you can't run them forever. They break down with lots of use. Now, David Goggins is a military dude. He's in a position where his problems are usually solvable by just working harder. And yeah, you can probably bulldoze really anything if you really want to. But if you're actually trying to follow the Goggins creed, it's going to lead you to a GA meeting, a Goggins Anonymous, where recovering addicts share stories of injuries, pooping on themselves, and ruining relationships, trying to mimic a fraction of his power, all chanting in unison, "I will run my own race." See, Goggins' content is absolutely useful to help motivate you and inspire you, but it should be used as fuel and not a way of life. This one is simple. This isn't about optimization. It's about pushing through barriers. It's about constantly improving, but at an unforgiving pace. Bruce Lee talks about taking what's useful and leaving what isn't. What's useful here is the mindset that can definitely help push you forward when you need it. But if you keep going beyond your limits, you're not going to just burn yourself out. You'll collapse in on yourself. If you're starting to forego things that you love and constantly going beyond your limits, then take a second to chill and cool off. A candle that burns the brightest also burns out the fastest. And frankly, nobody is built like David Goggins. In case it isn't clear, too much David Goggins is kind of like Viagra. If you stay too hard for too long, you'll need a doctor. Guru number 4, speaking of doctors, Dr. K from HealthyGamerGG, my personal favorite monk slash doctor slash gamer who borderline inspired me to even make this list.
But I think what this is going to be terrifying, but I think you have to be okay with being dumb.
See, I have a personal connection with Dr. K. We both wanted to be doctors and decided to go different ways in our lives. He overcame a crippling gaming addiction. I thought about overcoming a crippling gaming addiction. He became a monk for years. I became a lawyer for years. Then he went back to school to become a medical doctor at 28. I am going back to school to become a medical doctor at the ripe old age of 29. Oh man, how did I let the years go by? Don't worry, I had a great 20s. I like that Dr. K focuses on how to make the most out of your passion, your years, and how to be kind to yourself through content meant to teach you how you work from the perspective of a Harvard-trained psychiatrist. So what is good about Dr. K and sources where people start to blend like religious content from his perspective as a monk with his perspective as a scientist? See, Dr. K combines being a degenerate gamer with an enlightened monk who overcame his own self-sabotaging behavior to be an alpha Chad physician that most of us would totally love to look up to. See, Goggins is a physical success story and an example of rags to still rags, but a happier rags, I think maybe. I'm not really sure if David Goggins is actually happy, but he's doing something that he wants to do. Dr. K is an academic success story where, yeah, like Andrew Huberman is too, but he was like a bad kid who became a success, and most of us aren't cool enough to be sucking in the way that Andrew Huberman sucked. Most of us are like Dr. K, where we do things that make us feel less empty and ask the questions of how do I make more of my life. See, Dr. K also provides scientific reasons for why you do what you do, and most importantly, his content helps you understand that the things that you think are character flaws are actually assets. In his terms, something that you think is a bug in the game is actually a feature. See, your hours of playing video games has actually told you about what's important to you and what's important to your mind, and nobody has told you how to make the most of what you are, and Dr. K tries to help you leverage your strengths, which you see as weaknesses, in a good way. Something I do is that I have a very general mind where I like to jump from thing to thing, so instead of studying one thing for 8 hours or working on the same thing for 8 hours, I try and work on one thing for 30 minutes and then stop and then work on something else for 30 minutes, and eventually that keeps me fresher, but I do get everything done. And this is good because people just don't know how to mentor you. He's the Palpatine to Anakin after Qui-Gon Jinn got donutted. Except Palpatine is the good guy in this scenario. So Dr. K, as a great psychiatrist, is also a great resource for anxiety, for depression, how to break free from addictive patterns, ADHD, self-control, and obviously the usual motivational content. But he also gives real relationship advice and social skill videos, which is great as a reformed gamer kid. And this content is actually more valuable than you'd expect for people on the internet. Or maybe it is as valuable as you'd expect, I don't know. So how can you tell when you've had too much of someone like Dr. K? When you've had too much relationship advice, too much great resources, too much content from someone that you really look up to. Maybe too much content from someone that you kind of wish you were. But see, this is subjective, but Dr. K relies a lot on spiritual content that he heavily relies on. And I think he does a good job at practicing temperance for his religious content, especially when he touches on very serious mental health issues. But if you don't buy into this specific kind of spiritual content, or you don't want to rely on, I don't know, just maybe gaslighting yourself into a placebo effect, then one, this could get a little overwhelming and maybe make you a little upset, and that's not great. And I think his content requires a pretty significant amount of self-discipline in applying his content. He doesn't intend any of this to be used to self-diagnose, but he talks like he's talking to pre-meds or to med students or to resident physicians. Since most of us are rocking the average collective IQ of an Eastern Kentucky Walmart, I don't trust our collective ability to use his content, which is expertly presented, but to use it in intelligent ways. Again, I respect Dr. K and he uses deep disclaimers for his content, but my disclaimer is I think his content might be too good. If Peterson is the wind to your sails helping to direct you, and Huberman is that dude chilling with a cold beverage in his quarters giving sage advice, and Goggins is the engine revved up and ready to take you where you need to go, despite the current whenever you need the emergency push, then Dr. K really isn't even a part of the ship at all. Dr. K to me is kind of like a lighthouse. His content is best used to make sure you're not just heading in a direction. His focus on a positive mindset and knowing who you are in a healthy way, this is who you watch when you need someone to help you make a decision, a lifestyle change for the right reasons, and understanding yourself for the right reasons, being kinder to yourself. He is helping you know if you are going in the right direction. You are using too much of Dr. K if he's becoming a replacement for an actual therapist. Just how people have a strange parasocial relationship with women on OnlyFans, no shade. People can have the same kind of relationship with a doctor, in this case their only psych or only psychiatrist. That doesn't really have as good of a ring to it as it did in my head. You're watching too much Dr. K if you aren't going out and finding real mentors in the world. See, I think you're actually going to need multiple people in your life in the mentor role. Teachers, bosses, professors, these are great starts. But you need at least one mentor, one real mentor in your life that you can email, have lunch with, talk to periodically, that is where you want to be in life, that has done the things that you want to do in your life, or at least is further along in it, and you can spend time with him or her and understand that reflection where you're seeing them invest back into you. And that's important because Dr. K might not have the same things or the same problems or have gone through the same things that you go through. Dr. K is great, but you don't know him and he doesn't know you. I know that is heartbreaking news, but I'm in touch with one of my professors from law school who I've spoken to, ate with, and kept constant contact with, and he knows who I am. I've met physicians that are doing the things that I want to do, and I've actually even had them help me walk through decisions and tough choices. I've even met people who have done both law and medical school like me, and they're where I want to be in life, and I think even though they're rare, they're out there, and I think they're excited that I'm trying to do the thing that they're trying to do, or have done. See, Dr. K is a single lighthouse, but the more lighthouses you have in your life, the clearer where you want to be will become. So if it's not clear, Dr. K should not replace a therapist. He should not replace a doctor. He should not replace a counselor, and he should not be your only mentor. I think there is tremendous value in building real-world, real-life relationships, and if you're spending as much time as you are watching Dr. K videos on finding someone somewhere that has done what you want to do, I think that is a better, or at least a valuable use of your time. I think they complement each other, the people in the real world and Dr. K, who no one knows if he's actually even real. I don't know anyone who's actually met Dr. K, so it's still up for debate. Guru number 5 is kind of bonus guru. My bonus guru is Asmongold. Not literally Asmongold, but he represents all the streamers and YouTubers who've got strong opinions on how to live your life and explain their worldview, but come from a position of just like a normal person. Everyone we've talked about is, you know, a scientist or extremely gifted physically, have done something super cool in their field, but a lot of people on the internet are maybe more like me, where they're just like a normal guy talking to, well, my phone. I actually get a surprising amount of insight and information from random bits of advice and opinions from content creators, random content creators on the internet. Sometimes it is really cool.
The biggest wall that you need to climb is the one that you build in your mind. Some power.
Sometimes it is really not. Like all things, you should take content like this with a grain of salt. Remember that the creator has an image they need to uphold, and sometimes they have ulterior motives. Like maybe they're selling you a course or a subscription. Well, I'd say that if random pieces of advice from people are on the internet fit anywhere onto this ship metaphor, I'd say they're kind of like your crew. You are obviously the captain, congratulations. But with your crew, some are great and make huge differences, and oftentimes others just take up space, slow things down, and deserve to walk the metaphorical plank. If you take anything from this, it should be that you shouldn't let any one guru or any one person run your life. If you take anything from this, it should be that you shouldn't let any one guru or any one lighthouse direct your entire decision. You have to stay the captain of your ship if you're not sick of the metaphor yet. If all else fails, just remember that every ship needs a compass, and your compass is your heart. I hate that I said that. I don't even know when this became a boat-themed video. I didn't intend that. May the winds be at your back, the rum be in your belly, the motivation in your heart. Give me a like, a comment, a subscription, lest I throw ye to the sharks. Arr. I'm not really good at accents. Or arr. Be careful with who you let direct you. Make sure you are making the final call and that you're getting as much information from as much people as possible. And be careful not to obsess over any one person's advice. Take time to implement things before consuming too much. Make sure you're not implementing too much either, but just motivate responsibly. Thanks, everyone.
I'm also making a Discord. I don't really have like a specific plan with it. I think we can all talk about our futures, the things we're trying to do together, motivate each other, and plans of action on how to actually achieve the things we want to achieve together. But I see a lot of awesome comments, and I figure it would make more sense if we all just talk together somewhere close. So yeah, it's in the description, I think.